Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stover. The present administration says it is committed to revamping ailing sectors of the economy. This was in President Bola Tinubu's inaugural speech, which highlighted the strengthening of public-private partnership and upscaling the impact of a private sector-driven economy. Tonight, Tuesday Live will focus on reviving some of the ailing sectors of the nation's economy and promoting homegrown solutions to the ever-increasing demand and supply chain of the economy. But before we go into the conversation, let's get to see this report by our correspondent, Benny Adams.
There's a global consensus that no nation can survive without agriculture. Not just because it is a source of food, but because it is connected to the production of all basic human needs. From being the main foreign exchange earner for Nigeria in the 1960s through exports to becoming a source of tourism with the breathtaking sites across the country that generate revenue through sales, taxes paid, in addition to feeding, accommodation, and transportation. Agriculture feeds industry with raw materials. That it has done for ages and received the required attention from government to thrive until the discovery of oil. In the 70s and 80s, one of the most vibrant sectors of the economy and the second largest employer of labor after government was the cotton, textile and garment industry.
We had over 180 textile mills, even composite textile mills in the country. And of course, that Nigeria was basically clothing its own citizens, and with good quality textile materials and textile products. But unfortunately, as we speak, perhaps you have maybe only about 7 textile mills that are functional, and even the functionality of it is, of course, reduced drastically. Maybe they are not doing upwards of 40% installed capacity.
At present, from Kaduna to Kano and Lagos, the textile factories are shut, and workers who left were never told to come back. In the case of Kaduna Textile, it belonged to the 19 northern states. And when the machines stopped in the year 2002, more than 4,000 workers were laid off.
We are over 13 years now that these mills were closed.
Recently, government, through the Central Bank's Uncle Borrowers program, made efforts to revive the cotton, textile and garment industry. But while the impact of such intervention is still being awaited, as expected, the private sector is also making attempts at ensuring that people have clothing, just as some government agencies, in their own little way, are contributing to the survival of the sector.
In Panteka, in Kaduna, we already have common facility for auto mechanics. In Nnewi, we have for some other group. In Lagos, we already have a product packaging facility at our Ikorodu IDC. In Katsina, we also have for garment making.
Our investments are over 1 trillion naira. Currently, the importation of textile products into the country is well over $5 billion. Using the current exchange rate, the merged rate, then that is close to 4 trillion naira. So we're trying to see how that obviously will be reversed. That money should be actually plowed back into the CTG sector to develop the sector while competing with countries that support their CTG sector in a major way. If you look at Bangladesh, perhaps the industry is doing close to $30 billion a year from garmenting alone. These are things that we already have the infrastructure, and that we are able to match up. Nigeria is predicted to be a population of 450 million people. And if we're already doing 5 billion, it means that double that. We're also talking about 10 billion US dollars of importation. And that needs to stop, and we need to be able to clothe our own people. The second-hand clothing, that's not the best way to go. There's no material except, of course, the specialized material, so to speak, or every other thing to do with clothing, to do with home textile, and so on and so forth. Nigeria can produce. We have that infrastructure, and I think that
another gold mine yet to be fully tapped to harness industrialization is the country's steel sector.
We have everything in this country to be self-sufficient in every aspect. The only thing that's missing is our, inability to produce liquid steel. And we have, the infrastructure and the back end to do it. There is nothing we cannot produce in this country the moment we have steel. And there's nothing we have not prototyped. You want to doubt me? Take a trip to Naseni. You'll be shocked. Or take a trip to that agricultural research center. Okay, you'll be shocked at what you're going to be seeing there. So it's all about us now saying as a country, hello. Okay, what's going on? We can retrofit all our aeroplanes. We can retrofit all our transformers. We can redesign and what Ajokuta has a plant that can retrofit, and I'm saying this on national television, every and any kind of transformer that we have in this country, 100% completed. So when people talk about Ajokuta is just not a steel company, it's a basic industries facility where you have 33 different components to it.
In all this, experts are of the view that the power sector has to work, as it remains a key enabler to economic growth. This is as the country grapples with the availability of less than 5,000 megawatts for a country of more than 200 million people. In Abuja, Benny Adams, NTA.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion, but just to quickly mention that tonight it'll be in two folds, as we'll also be looking into the significance of the el-Kabir celebration, also known as the Feast of Sacrifice, which of course comes up in less than a couple of hours. But let's start off with revamping some ailing sectors of the Nigerian economy and the commitment to breathing new life into some of the industries that have been comatose for quite a while now. And I'd like to introduce our guests on this segment. Let me welcome to this program Dr. Isaac Abuja, a public health specialist. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
All right. And joining us via Zoom from Mina, Niger State is Mr. Ken Okoha, a trade and economic development expert. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
All right.
And good evening, Nigerians.
Okay. All right. So, let's begin to look at some of the issues at stake on this first segment of our program tonight. Well, surely and clearly, there are so many areas in the country that have been going through very difficult times, and it's affected so much to do with the country's economic well-being. But what do you see on a general note when you look at the state of things on ground?
Well, I see challenges and opportunities. Challenges in the sense that when you look at the country, let me take health, my own domain, whose definition is the physical, mental, and social well-being of a person. We are physically compromised in many ways. If you look around, as we listened a few minutes ago, the power supply is comatose. We are unable to sleep well. We are unable to produce what we need. And we are unable to live optimally. if you look at food security, what we need to eat as a people is not what we are producing, and it's not what we have. We are not secured food-wise, not because we are not capable of producing what we can eat or what we need to eat, but because for one reason or the other we are not doing it. And if you look at the economic situation of the country, the income of the average Nigerian is so low that he is unable to purchase what he actually needs to live well, especially food, to eat well. Many people who used to eat 3 times a day are now eating sometimes 1 or 2 a day, which is not normal. If you look at infrastructure, here I just talked about power, you talk about transportation, for example. Our roads are terrible. Many people are now coming down with waist pains that they ordinarily shouldn't have. And I think some of this is because of the uncomfortable way they live. People like you that sit hours in a day, your spinal cord is prone to injury because of the weight you are putting on it. People who travel long distances on very bad roads, at the end of the day, complain of waist pain because of the injury that they suffer. And the neck too suffers because they are on the roads longer than they are supposed to be, and in a very harsh and uncomfortable manner. So, putting all this together, especially the inability of the average Nigerian to purchase what he needs, whether it is clothing or food or medicine or whatever, is a contributory factor to the unhealthy life that we are experiencing at the moment. And that leads to early mortality too. It leads to morbidity, which is illness, sickness, and that progresses to mortality, which is death, and which is very unfortunate.
Well, from the perspective of the health sector and what needs to be done, we'll come back to you later on. Let's go over to Kenukoha and expand this discussion. First, what do you see on ground? The new administration says it is going to take on these challenges and ensure that it breathes new life into the Nigerian economy. So what are we looking at here as the administration settles down to the business of governance? What do you see when you look at the landscape? Yes, Mr. Okoha, it would seem as if you can't hear me clearly. We want to try again and see if we can link up properly. If the links are okay now. All right, we'll return. We'll see if we can fix that. There's a glitch or something. Well, we'll return to Kenukoha in a moment. Well, the challenges are many, but they're not insurmountable.
No.
And with a renewed commitment, when a new administration says it's taking on these challenges headlong and it's going to work on it, what would be the areas, the first areas, the pointers where we would begin to look at and say, let's begin from here, or let us take a few steps towards ameliorating the situation?
Well, from the health perspective, first of all, our infant mortality at the moment is very high. Infant mortality means that a child that is born that would die before that child is a year old. And at the moment, our infant mortality stands at 50, which is quite high. In Africa, generally, it is 42. Actually, ours is 56. African average is 42. Global average is 26. So if you look at the world where the infant mortality is 26, the African average is 42, but the Nigerian figure is 56. That tells you that we are not okay. Now let's look at under 5 mortality. What do I mean by that? It means that a child that is born this year that might likely die before he is 5 years old. The rate in Nigeria at the moment is 117 for 1,000 live births. The African average is 78 for 1,000 live births. The global average is 38. That again tells you that we are in trouble. Global average is 38. African average is 78. Nigerian is 117. That's double. If you look at mortality rate, in Nigeria it's about 576 per 100,000 live births. The African average is 445, lower than that of Nigeria. The global figure is 223, much lower than Nigerian figure, about half. That tells you that when you compare us to the rest of Africa and to the rest of the world, we look odd. And then when you look at the malnutrition rate among children that are 0 to 5 years, in Nigeria, about 32% of our children who are less than 5 years old are malnourished. They have stunted growth. And that's quite a high figure. That means that if you take 100 children, 32 of them will have height lower than what they are supposed to have, will have weight lower than what they are supposed to have, and they will be unhealthy. And if you want to know the real figure, about 2 million Nigerian children have acute malnutrition. 2 million. Of these 2 million, only about 20% are receiving some form of medical attention. Only 20%. Now you ask, what then happens to the rest of the 80%? Probability of death. If you look at our HIV rate, which is one of the most common diseases we have at the moment, among the adults is about 1.4%. Among the youths is about 3.5%. Nigerian average is hovering around 3%. That doesn't say too well of us. Now, if you look at life expectancy, it's hovering between 55.5 to 57. That means that the average Nigerian average will live only for about 56 years. That's very low. If you take a country like Japan, theirs is 84. Meaning that average Japanese will live for 84 years. And when you come back to Nigeria and you look at our death rate, in 2021, 2 years ago, we had 13 persons per 1,000, meaning if you take 1,000 Nigerians, January this year, and you watch them till December 31st this year, 13 of them would die 2 years ago. This year, 15 of them will die. Meaning, instead of improving, we are deteriorating, we are going back.
So where do you begin to tackle the issues?
Well, the first thing to do is to bring these health indices down.
Okay.
Reduce the maternal mortality that we have, reduce the child mortality that we have, reduce the infant mortality that we have, reduce the malnutrition rate that we have. Our fertility rate at the moment is 5.31, meaning that the average woman, Nigerian woman, who is of childbearing age, will produce 5.31 children. That's quite high. It is better than it used to be now, but it's still quite high because it's a problem. Okay, if you look at the total birth rate in the country, in other words, if you take 1,000 Nigerians and you watch them from January till December, the number will increase from 1,000 by 46 people by the end of the year. In other words, if you take adults like you and I, and you give us our wives, 1,000 of us, and you say January 1st, oh yeah, let's go, till December 31st. By December 31st, that number that we started with 1,000 will increase by 46 people. That's a lot, because you have to feed them. Now, if I have my way, my priority, like I told you, is to reduce those health indices that I've given: infant mortality rate, child mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, and I would also want to reduce the fertility rate that we have, and of course the birth rate that is 46 per 1,000 people. That's very high. Now, if you look at our production, let me relate it to what somebody just said. We are not producing our vaccines, we are buying them. We are not producing our drugs, we are buying them, especially drugs. If you take Abuja only, and you go to the pharmacies and tell them to give you a figure of how many drugs they sell per month, and you relate it to the population of Abuja, you'll be shocked. You will wonder, if we are spending this much money on drugs alone, where do we find money to eat?
Well, so bringing that down would of course require manufacturing your own medicines, your own drugs, which is also dependent on a lot of issues, and the manufacturing sector is also facing its challenges. Let's see if can we get back to Kenu Koha and Mina. Has that situation improved? No, we're still working on it. We'll try to fix that. So, if I should take the matter of malnutrition, it would mean that the country has to do more to adequately feed, its children's population.
Yeah.
And that, of course, would mean going back to agricultural practices that are best and improving on what is on ground. But it doesn't stop there too. It means value addition to so much of what we produced, instead of just producing the raw materials which are taken to other parts of the world and processed. But again, there are also other factors that affect that. So what we'll do at this point in time, we'll take one of our other reports as we compare what's happening in other parts of the country. Let's take this report from Lagos.
Described as the melting point of Nigeria, Lagos remains the commercial nerve center of the country and West Africa. This is attributed to the commercial beehive the state is reputed for. Several manufacturing companies are located across the state, and one of such is the textile factories. Nigeria's textile industry, like several subsectors under the manufacturing sector, has suffered a rapid implosion over the years, declining from a wealth-creating segment of the economy in the 1980s to one that is now literally crying for help. According to available records, by the early to mid-1980s, Nigeria had well over 180 textile mills employing more than 1 million people. Today, there are fewer than 3 full-fledged textile mills in Nigeria. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, like previous governments, is being confronted with the challenge of reviving the textile industry and other ailing sectors, particularly in Lagos, where they have the potential to create jobs.
The manufacturing sector needs some kind of concessionary credit, some of which we had under the previous administration, but I'm hoping that under this new administration, the framework for the concessionary credit to manufacturing sector or to the real sector will further be revamped to make them more impactful.
Bringing people to invest in this sector, you need to ensure that they feel secure. Foreign direct investments. A lot of diasporans want to come and invest in the country. Even some foreigners know the potential of Nigeria, so they want to come in. But the security is a major challenge for them. Every part of Nigeria have the peculiarity.
Africa, which is being patronized mostly by the masses, critical masses of the country, is not going to encourage that textile. So what, as tough as it is, we just have to shut down or close down border against the importation of foreign textiles.
Seize this opportunity by supporting locally made textiles and encouraging innovation in designs and production. Together, we can revive the textile industry, create jobs, and build a prosperous future for Nigeria.
Experts and stakeholders agree that government at all levels must be intentional with the funding of the manufacturing sector, as it is the catalyst for the economic growth and development of Nigeria.
And so, huge challenges with the manufacturing sector, and I do hope now that we can get back to the links with Ken Koha and Mina. And yes, from your perspective, sorry that we had this hitch and the glitch just at the time we wanted you to open up your discussion. But now that we have you with us, let's hear you. How this is all going, what's on ground, and particularly how the manufacturing sector is faring and what can be done, because a lot would depend on if we can begin production to the levels, appreciable levels, I mean, at this time.
All right, thank you very much, Cyril. I think I would want to start this way, that generally speaking, the story about Nigeria's economy is not something that is palatable and should not be spoken about before dinner, else the eyes will not get some sleep. I think that the economy has been run down. The economy is in tatters. Have we lost hope? I don't think so. However, it needs serious efforts. And what kind of efforts do we have to make? Number one, and if we have to make such efforts, who has to lead in the efforts? Number two, and if somebody would have to lead, where does it start from? Where are there some priorities? I think in answering these questions, it is important that the present administration understands clearly that there's a problem, there's fire on the mountain. Understand exactly where you're coming from. What it then behoves is that there must be a comprehensive diagnostics, which I have not seen. Comprehensive diagnostics. And this is exactly what the president would need to do. I am not impressed with the staccato kind of approach. People are hailing actions taken, but I think that these actions must emanate from a comprehensive diagnosis. And what do I mean? that kind of diagnosis will lead us to understanding where the water started drenching us. Now, in terms of the economy, there is need to understand what is our template. What has it been from time till this moment? Where are we? What kind of economy are we running? Are we running an import-dependent economy, or are we running an economy that seeks to create jobs, seeks to improve the manufacturing sector, seeks to industrialize? Do we have such policies on ground? If we do, what are the extent of such strategies left in these policies? And what has happened so far? Now, the comprehensive nature of the diagnosis I'm talking about will lead us to understand, for instance, which are the sectors that need to have some quick actions where we can get some low-hanging fruits on the immediate, and then on a long term, where do we also get investors come in? I'm not so comfortable with talking about investors. I'm not very comfortable with galvanizing foreign investors in our industrial sector. You know why? Because these people are competitors. Nobody will want to invest theirs fully here. We've tried this severally. We have a lot of things that are, bedeviling us in terms of power, the energy sector, in terms of finance, in terms of monetary policy, in terms of even insecurity that everybody is talking about. Now, I think that this kind of comprehensive check, this diagnosis I talked about, will help us to know our status. They identify those areas, those sectors. People have talked about the textile sector. I do not disagree with them. But I'm also happy to say this, that if successive administrations had listened to what we had said earlier, even on this particular program, on NTA, severally, that the sector, yes, is bedeviled with a lot of issues. However, if there is a concerted effort in terms of policy approach by government to say, look, every uniform worn by the soldier, by the Navy, by the Air Force, by students, customs, but all paramilitary, in fact, and children in school, every uniform worn by these people must be produced locally. Hey, there is no way one industry, one textile industry will be found below. Everywhere we wake up, those who do not have the way without will go to see how to borrow money and wake up. They will say how to industrialize, quickly get up. But the point is that if you keep on thinking about giving them money, the people who are giving the money out are also looking for their pockets. Eventually, the whole thing will come into a kind of circle, running the circle of, just like what we're having in the oil sector, where you have, the refineries. Every year we're doing, rehabilitation of refineries, and yet they're not working, and the money is gone. And where is it going to? Where has it gone to? Nobody is talking about them. So until we look at the real problem, number two, governments, also need to find ways of appreciating these industries. In what terms? Appreciating them by patronizing them. We can't have innocence. We can't have Anamco. We can't have Peugeot. And then we are, importing all the vehicles, literally all the vehicles that, our National Assembly members are using, government sectors are using. And then we are looking for, the Toyotas of this world. That's hypocrisy. We can't develop that way. We can't industrialize. That's the starting point. We can't be getting foreign rice eaten in Aso Rock when we are banning smuggling of rice. When we are saying on one hand we are talking about improving local farmers' production and productivity. So this is the starting point. Whatever we're going to consume, let it start from our own production, our own domestic production. So this is where we need to start. And then I also think, Cyril, that this government would need to come up with a template, a blueprint. Where are you taking us to? Knowing where we are coming from, knowing the startup situation, where are you taking us to from here? Where are the sectors? It is no longer going to be, papers written. No. In clear terms, articulated formats. Where do you want to take us to? Who are the people leading us in this particular, journey? And what mileage are we covering so that we will come back tomorrow in the next 4 years and measure exactly what has happened? If nothing is done in the next 2 years, I can tell you, I'm not a prophet of doom, but I pray Somalia will never be better than us. Thank you.
All right. Well, at this point, let's take on another of our reports. This one is from Kano.
In addition to being a commercial nerve center of northern Nigeria, Kano was also ranked higher in industrialization around 70s and 80s, with a lot of garment and textile industries that provided thousands of job opportunities. Many of them have now closed, with some operating below their capacity, leading to the loss of many jobs.
Before, you will prefer to work in the companies than working with the government. One, they pay higher than the government then, but now those companies are not available. They employed more than half of the labor that government employs. But now, if you look at the situation of Nigeria, government is the larger employer of labor. And this is what is even bringing an unemployment problem in the country now.
Despite all the challenges, some companies, especially the new generations, have continued to remain afloat, creating more jobs and impacting on the economy of the state and the nation. This one alone has created more than 3,000 jobs, with more than 1 million indirect ones.
I spent more than 10 years working here. I own so many things, and all my children are in private school.
I have sisters and brothers who I'm taking care of. I appreciate God for this opportunity. I am using my monthly wage to take care of my orphans.
Federal government's deliberate policy on agriculture, particularly the ban on rice importations, has paved the way for the opening and expansion of more rice mills that are fast flourishing in Kano, which supports farmers to produce more. Although with common and unique challenges, some manufacturers and producers are working towards promoting the Nigerian made, noting that their brands are penetrating the markets with prospects of crossing the shores of the country.
Some of the challenges we meet is with our freight and forwarding agents. Their charges is what is killing export business in Nigeria.
That we in Nigeria can work, can produce quality, and there is a good standard. But we need to get support from the government. The government needs to support the industry so that the industry can go forward.
They are optimistic that with economic-friendly policies, massive infrastructure like the early completion of the gas pipeline, rail projects, among others, they have all it takes to grow the nation's economy and compete favorably with other economies. In Kano, Amin Umar.
All right. To grow the economy, you need a healthy people, and because they are the ones who would work the economy. Let's look at primary health care. What can we say should be the immediate, mid-term or long-term measures to proverbially give this area the much-needed shot in the arm?
Yeah, I think you've asked the most important question this evening, because if you're not healthy, you cannot be a worker, and you cannot be a beneficiary of anything. You cannot industrialize, you cannot go to school, you cannot be anything. Primary health care should be our focus for many reasons. Number one, most of the diseases that we have in the country, that are prevalent in the country, are diseases that can be easily cured or prevented in the first place. And if prevention fails, those diseases can be treated in primary health care. We don't even need to talk about secondary level, which is the hospitals, the general hospitals, nor the tertiary level, which is the teaching hospitals and so on. But unfortunately, most, not just some, most of our primary health care centers are either non-functional or incapable of providing the services that people need. You take, for example, the present situation where, let's look at universal coverage, which is one of the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals. By the way, I will come to that soon. There are three principles involved. The number one principle is the provision of service. So we don't have the primary health care centers. We don't have the people that are trained to work there. We don't have the equipment that are supposed to be used. We don't have the drugs that are supposed to be given to patients. Therefore, the services are not there. Now, the second thing you think of is the access. In considering access, there are two ways of looking at it. The physical access, meaning how close are you to a primary health care center. The ideal is that for every 5-kilometer range or distance from everybody, there should be a health center. That's ideal. But it's not happening right now. That's the physical access. How about the financial access? Most of the services that are provided, the scanty services that are provided, are not affordable. Because the people's income has dwindled so much, the value of the naira has depreciated so much, that the average person who previously probably that earned 20,000 naira a month, that could take care of himself and his family, can no longer buy a full set of drugs for malaria treatment. And if he does, the average episode of malaria per person per year is 3, average. Meaning that if you look at everybody in Nigeria, on the average, everybody, the average is 3 episodes of malaria per person per year. If one episode takes about 3,000 naira out of your 20, how much less would it be that you are unable, if you have a big family, to treat members of your family? Then we go to the third principle. The first one is availability of services. The second one, affordability or access, physical access, financial access. The third one is quality. What is the quality of care that we are giving? How many pregnant women go to a primary health care center and get the kind of medical attention that they need? How many of them are followed up to the point of delivery? How many of them deliver safely? And how many of them are able to afford even normal pregnancy? Because when you are pregnant, you need more food. You need some medication. And by the time you deliver, the money, the little money you have, has already almost been exhausted. And if for any reason you need operation, a C-section for you to deliver as a result of some complication, God would help you at that point, because you may not be able to pay the bill. If you notice, the national health care coverage at the moment does not cover even up to 10% of the population in the country. When you hear almost everybody is covered, you are talking of government employees. What percentage of Nigerians work for government, either at federal level or at state level or at local government level? Very small compared to the general population. And within the government employees, among them, you might say the coverage is okay or reasonably okay. But how about if it is a very serious case? At the moment, we have a lot of chronic diseases, non-communicable diseases, hypertension, diabetes in particular. We now have a lot of kidney problems, chronic kidney problems, to mention a few. These are diseases that every time you go to a doctor, he would renew your prescription. You have to fill your medication. And that doesn't come free. You have to pay. So now, if I am asked, if this is the situation that is very frightening, what is your first step to take? My first step to take is to revamp, to rebuild, to restore, to rehabilitate the primary health care centers. When you do that, and by the way, primary health care centers are a partnership between the federal government, the state government, and the local government. How does the partnership work? The federal government is supposed to build the centers. The state governments are supposed to furnish and equip them. The local government councils are supposed to provide the personnel to work in them. So each person is chipping in his own contribution. But then, is the general economic situation in the country ideal for that to work very well? All right. That's the big question.
Okay, let's get back to Mina with Kenukoha. And a few steps are seen to have been taken so far within the very early stages of this administration to deal with certain aspects of the economy. Not the least, the abolition of the dual exchange rate regime. Some analysts say that is bound to have some very beneficial, it's bound to be beneficial in the long run, even if it seems at the early stages it will lead to further pressures on that. How do you see it, and what would you recommend?
Okay, thank you very much. This again goes back to what I said earlier. Some of the steps that have been taken, literally, on a first look, they appear commendable. And I'm not saying they are not commendable. However, I am of the opinion, and a very strong one, that some of these steps have been taken without this diagnosis, without this comprehensive check. Now, for instance, you talked about the the currency stabilization measure, which is a good one. However, you also know that the ultimate of this is inflation. So if you take off one and then you put on another cap that is turning, where are we headed to? Now, take a look at the subsidy. Good thing. However, why don't we sit down and ask ourselves this question first? what is subsidy? If you answer that question, we go to the next step. Who is being subsidized and who is subsidizing who? 3, is this subsidy being realistic? What is the status of those who have been subsidizing? I mean, those who have been subsidized. Who are the beneficiaries? We need to identify all of these. By the time you get all of them, and then we publish them, put them in reality, in proper perspectives, then the next thing would be that anyone who is thinking of subsidy again, or who has already pilfered what belongs to the Commonwealth and pocketed same, would need to face the wrath of the law, so that others will be afraid. So that when you move this, it will not, if not, look, what I'm saying is that if not, we will continue to go around the circle again. There is going to be another subsidy. In fact, some people are talking about palliative, and I don't think it is even the right way to go. Personally, what kind of palliative? We have also gone through this palliative once in life of this, this country, and we know how it ended. Nonetheless, if you talk about palliative, who are you now moving the palliative to? Is it the kind of palliative that we had this, through this, just concluded administration? Where did it end up? Who picked up the palliatives? Give me the list of the people who were palliated. Let's have it. Let's have the transparency. Let's have something that shows that, look, there is purity in the process. And this kind of comprehensive analysis that I'm talking about gives us that purity, leads us to that purity of the process, so that nobody will ever try to do it. If you now talk about giving, lifting the workers' status by increasing their salaries, federal government, state workers, what about the market person like me? What about the farmer out there who has been suffering? How are you going to raise the palliative for me? Is it the 5,000 naira that you're going to give? Is it the trader money? What happened to the trader money? What happened to the farmer's money? What happened to the market money? Why don't we sit down and do a kind of diagnosis? Then, we're also looking at this monetary issue. I think that the government would need to sit down and look at where it is heading to, where it wants to head to. Put up your team, assemble your team first. If I were Mr. President, don't be in a hurry. All of these things, you are going to get them right. And may I say this? This is a government that is trying to sit down and get legitimacy. If you want to do that, you will need to assemble your team properly. Assemble a technocratic team that will do some of these things that I'm talking about. And then think of what we need to apply, the remedies that we need to apply. Bringing back this subject matter to our industrialization. Monies that are cut out from some of these subsidies, my God, I have to go to, creating industries. There is nothing wrong with government setting up industries. There is nothing wrong with government, collaborating with private sector and civil society, for God's sake. Set up firms. Set up accountability mechanism that will set up such factories that will employ people. But what we're seeing today is government. Look at the construction company, for instance, construction sector, that has the capacity, the propensity to create jobs. instead of a monumental way of guiding that process, that particular sector, what we are seeing today is that within few weeks of the new administration, some state governors are crushing houses, buildings, pulling down. I mean, is that the way? You are destroying the sector. You are also destroying investments that ought to have been converted. We need to be wiser. This is where I think that, we need to step down a bit, step back, and think properly of the kind of steps that we need to take. Thank you.
All right, we still have another report on this subject matter, and this one will be from Port Harcourt, I believe.
Discovery of oil in commercial quantity in 1968, almost every sector of the Nigerian economy has recorded sluggish growth, contributing little or nothing to the gross national product. From manufacturing to agriculture, health, education, science and technology, entertainment and maritime sectors all have in the last few decades had their fair share of the troubled economy. This is mainly because little or no attention has been paid to these sectors due to overdependence on oil as the mainstay of the nation's economy. This has resulted to loss of jobs and billions of naira in accruable revenue, weak currency, high inflation, and increasing fiscal deficit among other negative indices.
We're actually, making its revenue from cocoa, granite, and then what have you. But immediately oil was discovered in commercial quantity, and the drilling and exploration of oil started. Cocoa and granite was abandoned, just like every other sector. So the simple answer to what you have asked is that it is government negligence.
That abandonment of other sector actually led to the over-dependence on the oil sector. And because everybody over-dependent on that sector, a lot of people were abandoning whatever they need to do. People were running to city centers from the villages and from the community, thereby abandoning the agricultural sector. By abandoning the agricultural sector, they end up sending a very wrong signal to the manufacturing sector. The manufacturing sector and the industrial sector now begin to decline in their performance because supply of what we call raw materials were no longer forthcoming. Also, because of the poor performance of the power sector, that also lead to increase in the cost of production. And as cost of production begin to increase, a lot of companies begin to fold to run back to economies where cost of production are low. And that created a lot of problem for us.
The solution is believed to be in taking urgent steps to ensure better macroeconomic framework and comprehensive review of economic policies and other reforms to drive and support investment and growth in these sectors.
For me, at this point, what this government needs to do is to look inward. What are those things that we have? What are those potentials we have? No country can strive without industry.
We have seen the reform that we are expecting. Now we are hoping that the combination of monetary policy and fiscal policy will be able to stimulate the economy.
While the economy has recorded some positive growth trend, especially in oil and gas in the last decades, its impact on poverty and job creation has been minimal. What then can be done to improve the sector?
We give kudos for signing that PI into law. I think with that, a lot of things we get set as we move forward the next few days. To Mr. President, I want to charge him to give a marching order for fixing Nigeria's own refineries. But Nigerian refineries will not operate at that global competitive rate if they are functional.
Many believe that almost all sectors of the Nigerian economy are begging for serious attention. If this is done, many say, it will not only improve the economy but also create millions of jobs for Nigerian youths. In Port Harcourt, Emmanuel Lene.
All right, at this point, just to let you know that phone lines will be open, the numbers will be on your screen. You can call in and be part of this discussion. And as we always advise, if you're calling in tonight and your call gets through, turn down the volume of your TV set so that you'll avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point and not to bother too much about the greetings. Just a simple hello would do. And whatever issues you raise, I guess, will attend to such issues as we go on. So just keep the calls coming through, and let's see how it goes. Back here with Dr. Isaac Abuja, one of the points that the current new administration has committed itself to is in ensuring that in the education system, the number of years that students expected to stay in school will remain the number of years. In other words, if it's a 4-year course, it will be 4 years, and if it's 7, it will be 7. Now, this is seen as addressing the perennial problem of strikes and shutdowns of institutions, which in the long run affect the quality of graduates. And here I'm even looking at the production of health personnel. The quality of the personnel, you talked about that in addressing the issue of primary health care. So, well, okay, so just before you answer that question, let's get to the phones and see Kabir, who's calling in from Bauchi. Hello, Kabir, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello, Kabir, go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Huh? Good evening, Kabir, we can hear you. Go on.
Hello.
Hello, Kabir. Go ahead. Okay. All right, we'll just go on, and perhaps you might need to call back.
Okay. All right.
Yes, Dr. Goja.
Yes.
Quality of the health personnel. And this is seen as a move that will impact on the quality of health personnel, who will in turn now address the challenges you've talked about in terms of the quality of services that are received, particularly in the primary health sector.
Yes. Since everybody is talking about removal of subsidy, and this is one area where there is immediate money to spend. If I had my way, and if I were to advise, one of the ways of spending the money wisely and for the benefit of everybody is to put money in primary health care, put the money in primary schools and secondary schools, put the money in paying teachers at all levels, primary teachers, secondary teachers, lecturers in the universities. Put the money alongside the sustainable development goals, which we can use as a checklist. Zero hunger, universal health coverage, universal education for everybody, especially at primary and secondary school levels. This is where I would want to spend my money, that money. If you define, in my opinion, palliative, the palliative I would want to see, my own definition of palliative is to have a good primary health care where everybody can go and get service, good quality care, good primary school with furniture, equipment, and well-paid and well-motivated teachers. Same with secondary school, universities. Then you think of big institutions like the universities themselves. But the most important palliative you can give in a country like ours today is to educate people. If you educate people very well, not only for health, the agriculturist will be well educated. The doctor will be well educated. The lawyer will be well educated. The IT person will be well educated. And the media person will also be well educated. And therefore, everybody will be able to play his or her own role.
Okay. Back to the phones. Let's see if we can get this call through from Ilorin. Abubakar calling in from Ilorin. Hello, Abubakar. Abubakar from Ilorin, are you there? All right. Some nights are like this, but we'll keep trying. Well, let's go over to Mr. Ken Ukoha, joining us via Zoom from Mina. We've seen a few steps taken. We've just talked about commitments to the education sector. And in terms of putting together a team, there has been some action in that direction, in the appointment of some advisors. But we'd like you to look at this. And some say it's significant having someone who would advise on monetary policy and also having someone who would advise on investment. Some would say, well, it's a pointer to where the government is headed, where you have an advisor on investments. What's your take?
All right. In fact, the first question I asked myself when I looked at, when I saw the special advisor portfolio on investment was, well, that's a good one. However, we have the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council, and there's a chief executive there, there's a board there. They should also be able to advise the president. It's under the, I think it's under the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment. And then I don't see anything wrong with that. But if we have an expert who specializes in investment, we require that, we need that. But what I think we need most is getting our environment investment friendly. If we get that, we don't need any person again to advise. What we need to do, perhaps, is, looking at what are the impediments to investment climate in Nigeria. Take, for instance, the insecurity issue that has been bedeviling us. Take, for instance, the issue of monetary policy that we talked about. Take, for instance, in terms of productivity and, access to market, access to finance for those who are producers, particularly the farmers, the small-scale farmers, who are in majority, who are the ones keeping us today. Take, for instance, that that insecurity has already, destroyed the fabrics of production, from the northeast to the northwest and the north central, where you have the the food basket of this country that could also be exported. I knew how many, trucks of grains that were moving from the north central down up to Mali, to Burkina Faso. Okay, but today it is no longer there. Why? Because all of those channels have been cut off by insecurity, insurgency. So people were investing in the production of these, commodities hitherto. Today, nobody wants to ply that route for safety. So how do we ensure that we bring in security along that corridor? Now, we also look at, the issue of the borders that were closed because of smuggling. The question is, if the borders were closed, what lessons did we learn? When they were open, what lessons did we learn? What has happened? We have it on record today, reported that there are more smuggling going on today along the border routes than when the borders were open. So I think that the investment climate is very important, yes. Or we can sit down and look at all these impediments and seek ways of removing them. That would help. But that brings me to one subject that is very important, which is that of the entertainment sector, where a lot of youths are inclined, are also involved, where Nigeria is bringing in a lot of laurels, where Nigeria is also bringing in a lot of revenue, generating a lot of revenue. There is virtually no country that you visit today across the world where you don't have Nigerian music playing and people are shaking their heads. People tend to jump up. So what do we do to invest more in that sector? And this is a sector that has many youths. This is a sector that's also moving towards ICT. So if you combine the entertainment and the ICT sectors, which are the two services sectors now that are helping Nigeria, what we need to do is to see how to stabilize those two sectors, inject more funds in them. If they have been rolling this way without funding, if they have been moving this way, moving Nigeria to the top without funding, we need to see how to stabilize their activities so that the revenue can also be jumping in from there. And then essentially we also need to look at our debt. It is unbearable. It appears unforgivable that we are in this kind of debt. Look at the percentage of debt, servicing with the revenue that we have. So what is left? So this is where I also have some issues with all these palliatives. And I agree with my brother, at the studio, who is talking about injecting the so-called palliatives fund into the critical sectors. If it is primary education, good. Primary health, fantastic. So that everybody, every dog, Dick and Harry, benefits therefrom. Not the one that you will, telling us that you are feeding some school children that are not there. We don't have records. And the money is filtered, the money is gone, never to return. And nobody is held responsible. Nobody is held accountable. This is where I am saying that the new administration must know how to hold people accountable. Do this diagnosis in a comprehensive manner. We will know who and who held us bound. How did we get to a point where, talking about this investment, do you know that, I'm not here to criticize anybody, but I think we need to say what the truth is. In terms of investment, foreign direct investment, Nigeria in 2015, Nigeria was doing about 53.8%. Where are we today? 8.3. It's unforgivable. It is unforgivable. So we need to do something very, very critical, radical. And I think I would also mention a few things, maybe with time, as we progress in this discussion. A few areas I feel the president.
You might as well. You might as well mention those few areas, because one, you've just talked about the huge debt burden, and the only way out of that is for you to generate more revenue. Of course, when you look at this administration, you tend to think that it might be leaning towards generating more revenue. And so, go ahead and suggest what you think we should be looking at ahead.
Maybe I should start this way. There lived a president in America. Whether it was called Abraham or Lincoln, history will tell. And this president was a pioneer in slave trade of those days. And this man had no reputation. And he eventually got sponsored by his colleagues and cohorts in the same business. And they were hailing that if this man eventually enters into government house, this our trade will be institutionalized. But do you know, sir, this man won the election, got in, and when they got in, everyone was looking at him. The same man ended up becoming the one that abolished slave trade. He became radical. He changed the whole thing. Everyone, all, including all his peers, supporters, as well as those who were in the same business with him, everybody was shattered. Now, can we look at our president? And I'm saying this boldly. I am saying this because I have my children here. I am saying this because I want this president to succeed. I am thinking that this president can become a radical. This president can take up a character that will look at the National Assembly and say, look, hey guys, I think it's high time we looked at this subject of bicameral legislation. We need to reduce areas where funds are leaking.
Okay.
We need to reduce that.
All right.
Let's have one of that. Number two, this same president can also look at the subject of reducing our embassies. We don't need all of this, everywhere in the world we have embassies. What are we benefiting? Other countries are looking at embassies at places where economic, diplomacy comes in and comes with revenue. Okay. We reduce that. Number three, we also look at, the Orange report. This president can be radical to look at that report and pull back many of the agencies. It could be difficult.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ken Ukoha. You've made out a few suggestions. Well, we're just about running up this segment as a result of going into another topic tonight. But we'd like to thank you very much for availing us of your time and your knowledge on these matters. And Mr. Ken Ukoha, trade and economic development expert, who joined us from Mina Verzum. We thank you for your thoughts on tonight, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cyril. Thank you, Nigerians.
Right. And back here, Dr. Isaac Abuja, your final word of advice to the current administration as we round off this segment.
Well, do the needful, focus on priority areas: health, number 1, education, number 2, agriculture, number 3.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Isaac Abuja, public health specialist. Thanks for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.
Right.
Thank you for having me.
Well, up ahead in just a few minutes, yes, just a few minutes really, we can say that. It would be midnight, and that means the celebration of the Feast of Sacrifice would officially be on. And that's what we'll talk about next after this break. Stay with us at NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. In just a short while now, the Muslim world will celebrate el-Kabir, which is the feast of sacrifice. I'm here on this segment with two gentlemen who will take us through this very important aspect and the build-up to it. Here with me, let me welcome to this program Ustaz Abdul Jalil Kelani, Deputy Imam Anwarul Huda Islamic Society. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
Let me also welcome Yahya Garba Al-Yolawi, Chief Imam, Area 10 Juma Mosque, Garki, Abuja. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Right, let's begin on this premise and let's first explain to us. We never get tired of this. It's well known, but say it one more time. The significance of this feast of sacrifice to the faith in those who believe.
Thank you very much. Eid el-Kabir or Eid al-Adha, it's called Eid al-Kabir because it's called the big festival. But it's actually Eid al-Adha, that is the festival whereby we sacrifice a ram or a camel or a cow or a goat as much as we can afford. The significance is to commemorate the aborted sacrifice of the only child of Prophet Ibrahim as at that time, to show whether the love he had for Allah, the Creator, is more than the love he had for his child that he had at his old age. So the Quran said that he was tested and he passed eventually, because actually Allah does not need the sacrifice of a child. Even the ram or the goat that we slaughter, neither the blood nor the flesh reaches him, but the taqwa, the faith that we have in him. So it is a festival that we actually show that we love Allah more than whatever we possess.
Let's see with this festival. It's usually at the last month of the Islamic calendar. Now, what are the lessons and those things we can derive from them?
Alhamdulillah, there are so many lessons to be extract from what is called Eid al-Adha, and the focal point there is the sacrifice. And you see, one, devotion and submission to the will of Allah by all means, against all odds, against your personal desire, personal interests. Secondly, to serve as a thanksgiving for you to afford the ram and to sacrifice it and give out the meat based on the instructions. by scholars. You can divide it into three. One for you and your family, one for the charity, and one you can give it as a gift. And the next thing is sacrifice. The issue of sacrifice we are talking about is over and above giving ram or giving meat. We need to look at it beyond that. When we say sacrifice, that is to give out, to leave your comfort zone, to live where you feel comfortable, where you are happy, where you are self-interest for you are in the expense of making somebody smile, making somebody happy, making somebody or making things right. This, by doing so, you have kept the lesson learned from the Eid al-Adha and the sacrifice as well.
Well, there are a number of activities which usually lead to the build-up and eventually climax with, into the Eid al-Adha. And one of them, which I'd like you to talk about, is Hajj, which is one of the pillars of Islam. Now, take us through some of the divine acts that are sanctioned for every Muslim during this period.
Thank you very much. Actually, there's a nexus between Hajj and Eid al-Adha. And the Hajj also has something to do even with Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. However, Hajj occurs in the month of Hajj, this Zulhijjah that we are in. Now, there are pillars that must be fulfilled for Hajj. The first thing is that there must be ability. You must have ability to perform, financial ability. So, and then to be able to, because if you can afford it, then you must also take care of the family that you're leaving behind. Then you must be healthy. Then there must be safety on the road. Now, the performance itself is that the means that you want to use must also be from halal. It must be from good sources. It must not be from haram. Now, there are 4 pillars. So wearing the ihram, that is the intention to perform the Hajj itself, at the designated portion. Like for us from Nigeria, so normally we go to Medina first, and then there's a place we call Miqat there, whereby we put on the ihram, and then we start chanting Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. Then from there we go to Mecca. So when we get to Mecca, so then we do the tawaf, and then all the other components. So there's the ihram, then the tawaf, that is the moving around the Kaaba, then the sa'i, that is moving from Safa to Marwa. So this is another component. Then, so going for Arafah. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ said that Al-Hajj Arafah, that is, the Arafah itself is Hajj. Whoever goes for Hajj and does not go to the plain of Arafah, the Hajj will be nullified. So, but to start the Hajj, so the rise of Hajj actually commences on the 8th day of Zulhijjah. That's like yesterday. So, which today that has just ended is the day of Arafah, that people go from Mina to Arafah, and then now people are now at like Muzdalifah. So, and then, so they will now go by tomorrow, I mean, when day breaks, so they will now go and do the Jamrah, which also has a link with Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and the son Ismail, because when the issue of maybe sacrificing the child, when he had the vision, so it was as if, is it true or is it not true? It was like, so even the devil tried to dissuade him. Dissuade him, dissuade the mother, and even the son. Eventually, it was the son that he tried to seduce last, and then that one threw a stone at it. And then that act also became symbolic, that when we perform Hajj, then we do what we call Jamrah. So all these are linked with even the Adha. Those of us at home, we do the Adha, but those of them in Hajj, they also do what they call, they kill what they call Hajjah. So it's the same ram, but different names because of technicalities. But the issue is that we all sacrifice what, just like Imam said, what we love most, to show that we love Allah.
Right, let me take on expand it still on the Hajj and Arafat you just talked about here. Huge gathering, just about the largest of Muslim faithful. What are the pilgrims expected to observe at Arafat here?
First of all, everyone knows that Al-Hajj Arafah, by all means, as long as you are out for Hajj, you must be there, even if you are sick, whatever the situation. If you miss Arafah, you miss Hajj. So this is first thing, to be there personally. Secondly, you are expected to pray hard, to pray. I used to even advise people to write down what the things, people, activities, their country, everything you need to, because sometimes the devil will just come and make you forget. So you need to seek forgiveness and a lot of azkar, read a lot of Quran. The best thing you are expected to say on that day, as the Prophet ﷺ says, خير ما قلت أنا والنبيون من بعدي لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. The best thing I have said, me and the prophets that come before me, is to say لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك والحمد وعلى كل شيء قدير. This azkar is more purifiable, followed by your supplications, and at the same time seeking for Allah's forgiveness, because there is no any day, I'm talking of day hours, in the whole world, in the whole 360 days that we have, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects and forgive and intercept people who have qualified initially to hellfire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take them back to Al-Jannah. He will forgive them. In fact, it has been the most difficult day for the devil, because he will try to take you astray, digress from the right path. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and blessings, He will just forgive you. You can see, even we that we are not there, when you fast for only that day, the forgiveness or expiation of 2 years. The last one, the previous one, and the one is coming. So now, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used to fulfill and even be proud of the believers at that time, where He will say, okay, look at my servants. Look at my servants. Because initially when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to create Adam alayhi salam, He said, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I will send down, I will create somebody who will come and govern this world the way I like it. Now the angel says, Alu ataja'alu fiha man yufsidu fiha. Now you will put somebody who will come and create chaos. Taja'alu fiha man yufsidu fiha. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lam. I know what you people, what you don't know. Now one of the wisdom, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks them, look at my people, look at my servant. What are they after? Ya Allah, they are after your paradise. They are after your Jannah. He will ask them, have they seen it? Now they will reply, they never seen it. What do you think if they have seen it? They say they will like it more, and they will seek for it more. Now He will ask them, what are they trying to seek refuge? What are they trying to seek protection against? Now you say hellfire. All the forgiveness one is seeking is to be protected against hellfire. Now He say, have they seen it? The angel will reply, no. What do you think if they have seen it? They said they will supplicate more. Now He say, Ishhadu, bear witness, I have forgiven them all. Over 2-point-something million people at the time.
All right, well, it's Wednesday. We're in the early hours of Wednesday, and that, of course, is when Eid al-Adha has been celebrated here. And so it's in order to say to you gentlemen, Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak.
All right. So now the focus turns to the real lessons to imbibe the blessings from this period beyond the celebrations?
Good. Thank you very much. One thing with Islam is that if one misses one opportunity, another always comes. And the only thing is that we don't allow people to just take things for granted, because you don't even know whether you will live to meet the next opportunity. And that's why it's always good to seize the opportunity, make the best of it while it lasts. Now this Eid al-Adha period, or this month, the first 10 days, the 10th day is tomorrow, they are the best days in the Islamic calendar, because so many good things happen, especially on the day of Arafah that we just explained, and then this Wednesday, that is the day of Adha. Now the lesson are just enormous. We cannot even finish them. But the issue of sincerity is there. Learning from the sincerity of purpose of Prophet Ibrahim that we are commemorating. Then the issue of devotion. So sacrifice. So, and we should not sacrifice the best we have only during the Eid period, but we should let it transcend, go beyond the time of Eid. In fact, it's supposed to be a kind of learning process for us, so that anytime we see people in need, then we should try to give. Help the people who are in need. In fact, the pious predecessors, they used to give the best of the things they have, so that when they see people smiling, happy, because that is actually the essence of Eid al-Adha, to put happiness and joy in the heart of people is the best thing. And the Messenger of Allah said that he is not a believer who eats his fill while his neighbors go hungry. And he even expatiated more that, look, your neighbors are like 40 houses to your right, 40 to your left, 40 to the ahead, and 40 behind. That means you can also, in fact, you are talking of like more than 1 kilometer apart, so in radius. So we are supposed to always try to help people in need. Once you are blessed, then bless others. Prophet Ibrahim that we are commemorating, it was because he was lavish in helping people. In fact, what became a kind of dilemma for him was that it was said that there was a time he sacrificed like 1,000 rams to worship Allah, and then 100 camels, 300 cows, and then people were wondering, even the angels were wondering. And he said, look, what I've done is nothing. If Allah were to give me a child, because that time he didn't have a child, I can even use him to worship Allah. And then eventually, and that's another thing we should be very careful. When you are looking for something, mind what you say. Because there are many of us who say, maybe they are barren. You say, in fact, if God will give me a child in the morning, it will die in the evening. We should be very careful, because words are powerful. So now he forgot what he said. Eventually, when Allah gave him a child, then the child grown up and he liked the child. Then he was reminded, fulfill your vow. Can it be true? So he was reminded again. So the first time he had the vision was on the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah. Is it true? Then when he thought it was not true, then the second day, that's the day of Arafah, he became convinced, and that's why it's called the day of Arafah. In fact, the day where he had that vision is actually at the plain of Arafah. And he became convinced, and that's why it's called the day of conviction, the day of knowing the truth. Then eventually he had the dream, the vision the third time, that he was actually sacrificing the child. Now, so eventually he was able to, he tried to fulfill that. Then Allah said, look, I don't want that. It's just that I tested you and you have passed. So this is how we reward people who are true, who are good. So we should be sincere, and then we should also be devoted. We should be convinced of our love for Allah, and then show it and let it radiate to others. That is the lesson.
All right, this is coming at a period that we can say very difficult times, hard times, and very many who before now would have afforded a ram or a camel or a cow And now you find many more people struggling to even exist on a daily basis. Now, for those who are unable to, we started this talking about affordability. For those who are unable to, what does Islam say?
First of all, we need to know that la yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not ordain or prescribe something that you can not take it. Now, the issue of somebody cannot afford. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he brought 2 rams. Now he slaughtered one, the first one on his behalf and his family. And he said, the next one is for he who cannot afford among my nation. So it's among my ummah. And that means you have been covered. Don't ever try to overstretch yourself, your pocket, your account, your financial capacity to impress others, to slaughter. It is not like that. In fact, it's not the meat, it's not the blood that reaches Allah, but your good intention. So if your intention is to make people happy, make your family happy, to maintain the status quo, to maintain the class, that okay, now I discovered that they said there is 1 ram of 1 million. So you want to slaughter a ram of 1 million. So when somebody is saying that that's 2023 we slaughter 1 million ram. So this is another thing which is not a reality or viable, or something that that has not far from arrogancy, not far from pride. Except if somebody knows that he has the capacity, that one is not anything. Now we need to know that sincerity, that capacity, that thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through sacrifice. You cannot do something with a stolen animal, with a stolen funds. This is where issues are, particularly with our people. So you need to know, Inna Allah ta'ala tayyib, la yaqbalu illa tayyib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure, and He accepts only things that are pure. So now you need to know, you need to actualize, or you need to know that yes, this is halal means for me. Because when you do it with haram means, even not even sacrifice, even Hajj itself, you say labbaik Allahumma labbaik, angels of Allah, they say la labbaika wa la sa'adaik. There is nothing, your Hajj is rejected. Talkless of giving sacrifice. Now, you see, at the same time, now we have to encourage others. We have to encourage those can afford, those have the means. Somebody can afford thousands of rams, not even one. Do something. It is part of the sacrifice we are talking about. Sacrifice some aspect of your wealth to put a smile in the face of poor and needy. Sacrifice a lot or some of your time as a spiritual personnel to make others smile or sleep well. Sacrifice your time and resources, you as a press, to make people enlightened, educated. To sacrifice a lot of your interest as a leader, not to corner things the way you like it, not to go, because the seed of corruption started from self-interest. I want it to be like this. Myself, my family, my friends, my region, my religion, my tribe, and so on, my party. All this one, we need to look at it. Now let me give you a very valid example. Nigerians now are sacrificing, are giving out their own side by patronizing and accepting subsidy removal, and everybody is trying to adjust his way of life. I would like leaders, those have the means, those are in mantle of power, to sacrifice their own side, their own interests, to make sure all those promises, all those intentions, good intentions that Nigerians had and they have expected, anticipating, hopefully it will take. Because only taking the lessons in these festive periods, the devotion, sincerity, love and sharing, and sacrifice, only that one can resolve a lot of our problems, and Nigeria will be a better place to.
Let's go back to the question of purity, because he just made a key point here, that in marking or celebrating the Feast of Sacrifice, you're not to use stolen funds, you're not to use stolen animals, all reflecting on the matter of purity of purpose and purity of the heart. And this is a message that cannot be overemphasized.
Sure. Thank you very much. So just taking it over from where I stopped. See, the issue of people who don't have, they don't need to steal. Because yes, it is good that we slaughter an animal if we can afford. It is sunnah, but it is not compulsory. It's not, if you have the means and you don't do it, then there's punishment. That Allah, but when you don't have, and Allah, because so Allah knows who He has created. So Allah knows your heart. If you are sincere, then there's no problem. But we should have what we call self-sufficiency. What is called qana. Be satisfied with where Allah has actually put you, what Allah has given to you, and then so you go like. So purity of intention is very important. Sincerity of purpose, just like we have been saying, that is what Allah rewarded Prophet Ibrahim for. And that is also what the Prophet Muhammad also gained from and taught us, that Allah is pure. He will not take from anybody whatever is impure. So that's why you cannot go and steal money and say, want to build a mosque. You won't have reward for it. So we should always make sure that whatever resources we want to use to worship Allah is from pure sources. So you cannot steal somebody's money or steal somebody's cow or goat or whatever and say you want to worship Allah. First, that means you are even complaining that Allah has not done enough for you. So purity of intention, sincerity of purpose, then devotion, because your devotion, if you say you want to worship Allah and then you are still having doubt. In fact, there's a verse of the Quran that says that there are some people, when things are going good for them, they would say, yes, I love God, God loves me. But when they face small trials, they say, why me? So they are like sitting on the fence. But the best people, the believers are those who, when things are good for them, they are with God. When it is also the other way, they are with God. They do not compare. In fact, some people, when things are going well for them, they are apprehensive that, because whether we like it or not, as human beings, it's opposite. Today you are happy, tomorrow something may happen. There's nobody who is born of Adam and Eve that was okay. From the time he has been born, he has never suffered some losses, or that he has never been happy. So it has to be both ways. So we should know that God is the one that brings both, and then we should love Him for who He is, because He's our creator, He's our cherisher and nourisher. So whatever we do is like thanking Him, and we cannot thank Him enough, because He is actually the one who has brought us here. And he has said that He's going to test us, and it's the kind of test that He actually gave to Ibrahim, that He passed, and that He made him to become the father of all nations. And when He asked, okay, don't make only me the father of all nations, don't make me the only the leader, even among my offspring. He said, look, only the good ones among them, only people who have good intention, pure intention. So, like you said, pure intention, purity of our soul is very, very important. It's very key. Can never be emphasized. So we are advising everybody, both the leaders and the led, the politicians and those of us they are actually leading. We should try to know where are we going from here. That is, when we leave this place, that's called Earth, we are going there. And because we are going there, it is whatever we do here that is going to be reflected there. And if the evil deeds are more than the good deeds, then the people will be consigned to where they don't like. But when our good deeds are more than even the evil deeds, then God will use His mercy to correct everything. So we are all advised to have good intention, to try to shun evil deeds. Why should people? And there are so many evil deeds that are rampant now. So is it Yahoo? Is it ritual killings, this and that? People want to get rich quick. A child of 20 years or less wants to become a millionaire. I mean, it's not like that. I mean, you don't climb the tree from the top. So it's the issue of contentment. So when we like now, somebody who has been slaughtering animal before, and this year, because of situation, cannot slaughter, Allah is merciful. Allah will not take such a person to task. So, and the person should just pray. And like our imams used to tell us, so on a day like this, day of Arafah, this day of Adha, there are days when prayers, supplications are answered. So it's an opportunity that, oh Allah, by virtue of these days, and by the virtue that you answer the supplication of righteous people, count me among those people, answer my prayers. Before next year, let me have good things, good stories to tell. And Allah will do that because He has said that He will never deny the good deeds of good people. So the issue is that let's check our hearts, let's try to be good and pray to Allah to always guide us aright.
All right. So, and as we prepare to wind down this segment of this discussion, I'd like you to give your words to all those who listen or watching this program now, and Nigerians in general, particularly as this period marks the beginning of a new administration. If you recall what happened throughout the elections and those periods where people, brother turned against brother, there was so much bitterness in the land.
You see, as we are discussing, sincerity, honesty is the key. Because one cannot sacrifice if he is not sincere. So we need to look inward. I am talking to almost to everyone who are the government, people. So everyone has a role to play. You have a role to play as gentlemen of the press. Security has their role to play. Leaders has their role to play. Followers, religious leaders has their roles to play. Everyone must know that this is our country. This is Nigeria. Nobody was asked to be here or they seek his advice. So if it is destiny, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined us to be here together. Now we need to look, okay, and tell yourself, not your bank account, not your pocket, not your selfish interests. Think over it. What do you think if you are able to corner whatever you corner, and you go back your village, they will stand on you. They are looking at you as a thief deep inside them. No respect, no regard, no honor. Now, when we say we should be honest with that issue of sincerity, it has the corruption has eaten deep inside people's blood, to the extent that the sincerity is becoming an expensive commodity. If not because of sincerity, not because of the level of faith you have and believe in your country, no any amount, it is your office, you know how to corner things. So it's the fear of Allah.
All right.
It's the fear of Allah that will make you to do the right thing at that office, at that place. So sincerity, then sacrifice follow. Let's just keep the lessons.
Okay, and it is on that note we'll have to leave the discussion here and wish everyone a happy celebration and keeping the lessons in mind. And so we'll say thank you to both of you, Ustaz Abdul Jalil Kelani, Deputy Imam, Awarul Huda Islamic Society. Thank you so much for being here, and Eid Mubarak once.
Thanks for having me, and Eid Mubarak.
And of course, Yahya Garba Al-Yolawi, Chief Imam Area 10 Jumu'ah Mosque, Garki, Abuja.
Yes.
Eid Mubarak to you too.
Thank you. Eid Mubarak. Taqabbalallahu minna wa minkum. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
And that's our program. We thank you for watching. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Happy celebrations.